Let's talk Deathloop. What a game. It's still one that I don't think I can necessarily recommend to every single type of player. It's got some specific weirdness to it, but I came away really surprised with just how much fun I had playing it. I've been playing a review copy for a while now. The game is now out in the wild, and I have a lot to say about it because what I do here is I just talk about the stuff I love. I'm not trying to burn the world down or anything. I just like games, and I like this one a lot. It's interesting because I have a weird relationship with Arkane, the developers behind this. I love the original Dishonored. It was freaking incredible. It was fantastic. I had gotten it I had just gotten a new PC after not having a PC for a long time, and I played it on PC, and it scratched that Thief vibe a little bit with all the freedom and all the stealth. And then I kind of bounced hard off of Dishonored 2. It just didn't click with me the way the first game did. And then Prey, a lot of people really like Prey, and I really appreciate Prey. And I still think it's underrated in terms of some of the things it does. But for me personally, it wasn't necessarily the type of game I would seek out immediately. And Deathloop seemed exciting. The premise seemed really complicated and weird, and I feel like they did a really bad job of telling people what the hell this game was. And when I finally was able to learn from the developers what the concept was and basically the gameplay loop, I was like, oh, so it's like a roguelite. And they're like, no, it's not. And I'm like, okay, but it sounds like a roguelite. I don't know if I'm gonna be into this. It's like a roguelite, but weird. Turns out it's not really that at all. And what it is just a really fun murder simulator. It does take a lot of cues and a lot of elements from Dishonored, but it kind of lightens things up a little bit in good ways and bad ways. In the bad way is that the artificial intelligence is pretty bad. It's a pretty easy game. It's easily cheesable, but on the flip side, it also does a really good job of encouraging you to mess with the game's systems, really explore the world, and just kind of screw around in a way that I really, really liked, because while you have other games that you're juggling your decisions and going non-lethal or lethal, Deathloop is set in a world where everybody's just crazy and dumb and murderous, and it's this Groundhog Day thing where everybody's aware that they're just going to get reset every single day. So really the name of the game here is to just murder without abandon. Fuck around and find out and see what happens. And that's the best part of this game, a lot of the experimentation. The loop seems overly complicated at first. It takes a while to really figure out, but then once it clicks, it's pretty straightforward. The way it really works is that the game world is divided up by 4 separate maps, and each map has its own people walking around with one visionary you need to kill, but to actually break the loop and win the game, you need to kill all 8 visionaries, basically in one full day, because then the world resets. And the way time moves forward in the game is when you go from one map and load into another one. It's not like during the game while you're playing the sun is setting. No, it only jumps specifically forward. It's a little more old school in that way, a little more structured and a little more level based, which I really like. So the game is essentially you just endlessly looping and replaying and dying, and then waking up on the beach in the morning and going through and learning information, because while you can't take everything back with you, information is the thing that sticks. So you need to really learn the areas, learn the maps, learn the tricks of where the enemies are going to be, the visionaries, and learn how to take them out. And there's some freedom to it. It's not quite like Hitman, but it's also not completely structured and hand-holdy. It's very much a really fine line where I was kind of worried. I'm not very creative when player creativity, when that's left up to your own devices, I usually suck, and I'd rather just kind of have a challenge or just have something structured. But this game, more than a lot of other games, and why I find it so special, does a really good job of being in between that and doing a good job of kind of, through its design, forcing you to get to learn the ins and outs of every level and learn the players and learn the chessboard and mess around with the abilities and see what you like and see what works best. And part of the main thing is the level design. I love the way everything is laid out here. Of course, you get a blink type teleport thing similar to Dishonored, and it opens up the game and makes it so much fun. You're creeping around on rooftops, you're zipping around, and getting a real look at this place. Black Reef is pretty incredible the way they designed it. So it has this whole 60s kind of retro futurist design. And I gotta be honest, that type of style is not usually my favorite thing to go to. Deathloop straight up seems like one of the best games with that style, with that retro cool style. It's like, I call it like the shagadelic vibe or style, because my broken brain only thinks of Austin Powers. But like you have that in some of the menu designs, you have that in the loading screens, you have that in the music, the musical cues, some of the sound effects, and it really just all comes together and clicks into this really weird murder first-person shooter island in the 60s with some really good shooting and some weapons that feel way better than anything they've done previously. Plus, with some of the weapons that you get, like some of the legendary or exotic weapons or whatever they're ranked in this game, are really creative. Like there's two pistols that can essentially click together into one gun and be like a little SMG. There's a really fun shotgun that plays up on this explosive gas mechanic. You can dual wield. The shotguns are big and chunky and boisterous. Stealth pistoling a dude to the dome is really satisfying. That's like one of my favorite things to do in this type of game, and it just feels good. And that combined with some of the powers like the domino effect where you can chain people together and then you shoot one and they all die, like a force push type of thing, some invisibility, and the way you upgrade those things is really nice. And the fact that it isn't really a roguelite, there is progression. You know, you are getting more stuff in terms of information, of course, but also you're going to be able to choose what you want to keep after each day. You have to spend a currency and you kind of have to grind a little bit to get better stuff. Or at least that's what it felt like to me. Not like a bad grind, but just a little bit of like, okay, I can go follow these clues and follow this mystery. This person's gonna show up at noon. So in the morning, I'm gonna load into this level instead and just mess around and maybe find a cool weapon and find some currency, maybe find some more hidden secrets and stuff like that, because the game is filled with a bunch of things to organically just learn about the world or find stuff and useful items and weapons, you know, and it just works. The other thing that I think people are gonna love or hate, and I very much was in the line of like, I'm not gonna like this, and I totally did, is the invasion system. So you're a cult and you're in this Deathloop world, you're endlessly looping, but people can jump into your world and basically fight you. Juliana is the other character who's kind of aware of this loop and taunts you through the whole game. Story-wise, it gets a little deeper than that, but essentially, it makes for really good games of cat and mouse. Like, you are warned, alerted when a player is invading your map. It says Juliana is on the hunt, and then it can get pretty tense and really awesome. And it's rewarding if you take them out. You have 3 essentially attempts. You only have to kill her once, but through the story and the way Cult works, he can die twice. But I've had some good shootouts, some really good encounters with Julianas out there. And it's been really tense and really thrilling and kind of like sweaty, especially when it happens when you're in the middle of something else and like the stakes are pretty high. And then it becomes more of a shit show because she can also call NPCs to start shooting at you. She can disguise herself, so like it can really, there's a lot of room for it to get really wacky and really escalate, and that type of stuff usually stresses me out. I usually turn these modes off, even with like the Souls games. Like I was always like, no. But here, and every once in a while, it was bullshit. It was a little annoying, but for the most part, I learned to really love them and embrace those little battles. I wouldn't always win. I'm not always very good at video games, but if a Juliana shows up in your world and you pop her and then maybe she actually has like a cool weapon or a slab that you don't have, it was like an interesting way to shake up the progression of the game too, which is also creative. It doesn't break anything, but it can help things in really interesting ways. Plus, the game does a really good job of incentivizing you to back out to the menu and play as Juliana and go invade your friends or invade other random people's games, because there's like a reward system. I found it satisfying and well incentivizing because it was like pretty generous. And thankfully, you can turn this stuff off. You can switch it to friends only mode or turn it off so nobody like bothers you. So the freedom is there regardless. But I like the element of it because it kind of really helped stress things a little more. Like the whole immediacy of the world where you are Cult, you are a badass, and Juliana is a badass person, who are both like dealing with this loop and manipulating it, and things are going on behind the scenes. And you're on this murder island that's just filled with a bunch of drunken, murderous idiots, and they all have really bad AI. But when Juliana's in the field and you're in the field, it does feel like you are two gods in this map where nothing else matters other than the chaos you are creating, if that makes sense. Like, I don't know, it helped kind of fill in the blanks for some things for me. But I gotta emphasize too, like when you're going off against the visionaries and you're figuring out how to kill them and you're exploring and you're checking out all these castles and these underground labs and these party venues and these clubs and these homes, like it really is so creative. The game is incredibly creative, and I just liked figuring out all this stuff and learning about all this stuff. And the story too, the characters, most notably Juliana and Colt. I think the voice acting is really good, and it's surprisingly funny at times. There's a couple cringe jokes, but a lot of it is just really well done because the voice actors are really good. Like this clip right here, this is one of my favorite things.
Should I say something profound? Ocean. Pearl diving. No. It's gotta be military and unimaginative. Bomb. The hell is this? Usurper. Chronological. Supercilious. Killifish. Suppository. Cheese wheel. Splash crash. Electron. Macabre. Justified. Schematic. Iteration. Lousewort. Eponymous. Skinflint. Debarking. Swine pox. Gardyloo? What the fuck is a Gardyloo?
So it's that kind of humor. It's light. It's just kind of like a guy being like, what the fuck is going on the whole time? But it works. Story-wise, it doesn't totally stick the landing. So there's that. At this point, I'm kind of accustomed to games kind of whiffing the ending, but I do still really like the journey. I like learning about the characters, and most importantly, the gameplay. I had a lot of fun playing. I wonder how this game's gonna go down, because obviously you've seen it, you've seen the trailer, it has a huge marketing budget. I wonder if it's gonna really stick with people, because I think some of the weirdness to it and the question marks about it, some people aren't going to want to commit $60 for it, and I get it. I still recommend it at some point, but I wonder if it's gonna fly under the radar and be like an underrated gem that people really love. Or I wonder if it's gonna be big enough to have a sequel, because a sequel for this game, this concept blown out even more, I think it'd be incredible. Because like this game has a lot of bugs. I wish it was a little bit more challenging. There's some things that can be added, more weapons, more abilities, the ability to use more abilities on the fly at once, more day-to-day or loop-to-loop decisions to be made, more stuff to grind for, like a blown-out version. Bleh. Long story short, what I'm trying to say is if they make a Deathloop 2, I'm really excited to see what that will be like. But I was pleasantly surprised, really. Like as much as I think I said I was really looking forward to Deathloop, the more I heard about it towards the end, I was like, I don't know, man. And I played it, and I still actually really, really love it. It's got some weird things. It's got some things that every player isn't maybe going to be into. But some of those things were things that I wasn't into in other games, and Deathloop made me like them, the way they integrated it in. So that's me. That's what I wanted to say. I want to hear what you guys think in the comments. This game came out today, so if you're just getting your feet wet, feel free. You don't have to talk shit in the comments. You can, come back to me. But I want to know what you're thinking about this game. If you were interested, if they explained it to you well enough, what do you think? Like, have you got any cool weapons or skins if you are playing, or a really crazy Juliana face-off story? I'd love to hear what you think. Thank you guys for coming around, though, and letting me ramble here about stuff I love. I really appreciate it. It's like therapy for me. But clicking the like button is all you got to do to help me out. It would really help, and I appreciate it. And, if you're backing me on Patreon or the YouTube memberships, thank you guys very much. But to all of you, thanks for being here. I'm Jake Baldino. Subscribe because video games. Pizza's on me.